And I even asked myself, why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. I'm in a position in my life where, you know what? If I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and just no care in the world, like casually have brunch with my friends, like I could do that. But it's just not the way that I'm wired. I have this like burning desire to make a difference and to use my past experiences for good. I feel like I am the voice and the representative for a lot of moms.
I'm Yogi Patel with Jagged Edge, and today we're talking about the question most folks have. I'm a parent or I'm a caregiver. I have lots of ideas. How do I start my business? Well, we have Stephanie Fornaro today, and she has started her own business, and we're going to talk with her a bit. And before we get started, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about your background.
My name is Stephanie Fornaro. I am a mother of two. I have an 18-year-old daughter who's a senior graduating this month, and my son is 6 and he is graduating kindergarten. So a little bit of a gap there, but I have experienced raising my children in two very different seasons of my life. One being as a single mother, juggling motherhood, juggling career, and juggling college all at the same time. And with my son, where I am deep into my career, lots of many years of experience, and really looking for a role that is fulfilling and making me feel like what I do makes a difference in the lives of people in society. And I hired a nanny about 6 years ago. Through that experience, I found a need that wasn't prevalent, that wasn't available. And that is essentially just an agency that is predictable and without conflict of interest. So I created an agency that does exactly that supports parents so that they don't have to recruit, vet, qualify, and hire caregivers for their children alone, because it is a lot of work. And we go through parenting wearing many hats, and this is just one less hat that a parent has to wear in working with our agency. So I started Hello Nanny.
I think so. Everything begins from a journey or experience that we personally have, and it sort of fuels something within us to go to the next step. And I think lots of our listeners probably could relate to, I have this amazing idea, or people compliment me on my skill as doing this X, Y, and Z thing really well. How do I sort of take this to the next level? I understand your inspiration behind this and how you kind of got to start your own business. But how did you experience as a parent influence what you currently do and this decision? Because I think having that idea and putting into action there are a lot of steps in between. So tell us a little bit about how did you make that idea into a reality?
I was so accustomed to doing everything on my own, like the hyper independence, the hyper self-sufficiency. And oftentimes I would allow my pride to get in the way, where it was like, I don't need help. I can do this myself. And setting aside that mindset of it's okay to ask for help. So having been married and remarried, going into my second marriage, I knew that I wanted help from my husband and that I wanted to raise our child together, and I didn't want to feel like a single mom. But I also had expectations of my husband, who is also a business owner, to contribute in ways that he just didn't have the bandwidth to give. And so the solution to that was hiring a nanny. But being the prideful, self-sufficient, working woman that I was, it was like, I don't want someone else raising my child. I want us to do this. And so when I was able to set aside my pride and accept help, which incremental buy-ins, I accepted help from a mother's helper. And so I was like, well, it's just a mother's helper. So I did that. And then that mother's helper quickly evolved into our full-time nanny, in which at that point I thought, why didn't I do this sooner? And I really want to encourage moms to set aside their pride, get rid of the hyper independence, the self-sufficiency, get rid of the pride, and accept help. Because it made me a much happier wife, a better engaged mom. I wasn't spread thin. I wasn't short fused. I was really enjoying motherhood the second time around because I wasn't doing it all on my own.
So Stephanie, it sounds like you having the second child, you kind of had this experience and you knew what you did want, you didn't want. And then you were basically a little vulnerable in saying, you know what, I really can use some help. And that's really, really difficult for many of us, where we're like, we need to do it all. And then this, especially important for me, that women, there's so few of us, I mean, more than before, but few of us out there leading in companies, having positions where we're making a difference or we are using our fullest potential and being out there. Sometimes twofold. One, it's so important for me that we support other women. And, you know, we have many, many challenges that we face. But one of the most important thing is, how could we support one another rather than taking one another down or looking for faults and becoming so critical? And then that brings me to, I'm sure you went from having been a parent, doing everything hands-on, and now you're balancing parenting and responsibility with building this new company that you're founding through the experience that you had. What challenges came up for you and how did you overcome them? Because I think this really can set a stage for many of us who have the desire and who have the capacity, but then challenges happen and we sometimes need a little bit more to get through them.
I would say my husband has been my biggest cheerleader and also my inner voice of Rome wasn't built in a day, one day at a time. I have all these big visions and plans and ideas of what this is in the future. And he's like, just take it one day at a time. And so it was being okay with that, being okay with progress incrementally, and having boundaries in terms of, you know, it's easy to get wrapped up in working 18 hours a day. I've done it. I'm guilty. I will work 18 hours a day. If I could, I'd work 24. If I didn't need sleep, I would do that.
You love what you do.
I do. And I love to work. I love to feel accomplished and like I've been a productive member of society. That's really important to me. Also being okay with turning it off and dedicating time. Like I created this business so that I had more autonomy, so that I could, you know, if my son was doing muffins with mom on this week, he's doing muffins with mom. I have autonomy over my schedule to pencil some time on my calendar and dedicate that time to being there for muffins and mom. Reminding myself why I created this as well for myself, not just for what I'm also doing for moms or doing for parents and doing for children, but also what I'm doing as a mom myself and being okay with shutting it off and taking that time and being really intentional about the time that I do have with my kids. Because what's most important is quality over quantity. If I'm spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with my kids, but I am overwhelmed, short-fused, and frustrated and burnt out, I am not going to be a pleasant mom. But if I am fulfilled and I am spending quality time with my children, then I am an engaged, more present, quality mom than I am on the latter. Not to say that the moms that do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week aren't good, checked in, quality moms, because in my opinion, those are unicorns. Those moms are unicorns and I applaud them. It's just not me. And it's okay not to be that unicorn mom. It's okay to say, I'm a mom that wants to have an identity outside of motherhood. And that doesn't make me less of a mom. That just makes me a more intentional mom that also loves myself enough to create boundaries.
So many parents hesitate to start a business. I know that I've started a few businesses, but before you get started, you think about it, you overthink about it. And one of the biggest thing that we consider is the financial risk. In your case, I know you had support of your husband and you knew what you wanted and you had some experience. So you had one child that you raised. This is the second child. How did you manage these concerns? And what advice do you have for those who are not able to take that step? They're at this stage. They have a lot of capacity, but they're worried about finances. What are some of the ways that folks can find finances? Or in your case, what did you do to overcome the financial part of it?
I worked in medical device sales previously. And so I was very successful in my previous career. I did very well. I was in sales for many, many years. And so, sales is a very lucrative position. It's a demanding, grinding position that what you put in is what you get out. With that, I did have the autonomy. I did have the ability to save. So I saved for quite a few years, and I created that foundation that I knew I needed to go out on my own eventually. So I had this plan to eventually go into business for myself, and I used that money and savings to invest in this business and take that leap of faith. I built the empires of other companies for many years because I was the boots on the ground. I was the sales professional that was doing the outreach, the networking, the business development. And I thought, I am tired of being everyone else's fastest racehorse. And I am going, if I applied what I've done for other companies to my own business, the sky is the limit. For me, I took that leap because I know what I'm capable of. I know what I've done for others, and I was prepared to finally do that for myself. What I found is that, and I had a conversation with one of my managers previously because I had tried to climb the corporate ladder to go into more managerial positions. But what I found is that they do not want to remove a revenue generator from a revenue generating role and put them into a non-revenue generating role because that is counterintuitive to the company's bottom line. Makes sense. I get it. It's business. It's logical. But what I realized is that I was going to be a racehorse forever. I was going to be in sales forever because I was too valuable to put anywhere else because I was always a top performer. For me, the competitive person that I am, I couldn't be mediocre. So my manager told me, just be average, middle of the road, do your job, just be good, be consistent, but don't be too good, too high of a performer. Because if you're too high of a performer, then you won't get promoted. Mm-hmm. My husband said, do it. And I was like, I can't. I cannot do that. I like the trophy. I like the first place. I like that position, And so I just couldn't do it. Again, going back to the whole pride thing, I couldn't set aside my pride. So I said, rather than continuing to spin my wheels with something that I have no control over, it's just innately who I am. It is my nature. I will not dumb down or break down my performance with I couldn't do it. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go be my own fastest racehorse. And I went out on my own and I started this business with a goal of supporting parents because I was a mom that was in the corporate world that didn't have the support and then did have the support. And I know what it's like to not have the support. And I know what it's like to have the support. And I know with the right support, it's possible to do both and do both really well and to enjoy motherhood as opposed to resent motherhood.
That's pretty powerful to me that I think sometimes we either go against what we believe, who we are, to fit the situation. And when we put a, square peg in a circle, it doesn't fit and eventually leads to burnout. So in your case, you were like, basically, this is who I am. This is what I want. Yes, I can go up the corporate ladder. It's not good for the company because I'm not going to be fulfilled and the results are going to show up in my work. But I'm going to be authentic and in integrity to who I am, what my values are, what is my belief. So you now are at this company, so you know who you are. And I love being the fastest racehorse, the top person. And now you take that energy and you save this money to start this new business. And it comes from a deficit that you had with your child and you wanted to spend time and you're now willing to give something up to gain something else. So there are two different things. So now you are creating an architecture and you're building a design of the life that you want. And now comes this, it's either you're alone at the top or you do this by yourself. You have your husband. How did this idea, okay, I like this nanny situation. I want this for other parents. What is that next step that you took to take this to the level of where you are now? So you had the idea, you figure out the money. How do you then move to having this business?
It happened organically, and it wasn't like I was seeking it out. I wasn't looking for the opportunity. Through the partnership that I had with my nanny, I met her daughter, and her daughter was working for a nanny agency, and she wasn't really happy at times with the way that things were handled. But she didn't have control over that because she was an employee, not a business owner. So she just had to do what she was told. So I kept encouraging her, well, if you don't like something, start your own, do it yourself, right? And she turned that around on me and said, well, I would do something like that, but only if you partnered with me, because she comes from the nanny world. So she knew the nanny industry, the nanny space, the needs of the nannies like the back of her hand. What she didn't know was operations, business development, systems, processes, all the business stuff. And so I thought, well, if there's anything that I can stand behind, it is supporting moms. 100%. That is like the biggest, most convicting thing in this life, that just at my core that I can stand behind and do and feel good about. I thought, I have this gift of sales and business development. I want it to go towards something that actually means something. And if that means that I get to support moms with that gift that I have, then that's really what I want to do. And I always knew that in the future, I want to start a nonprofit organization geared towards supporting single moms. I felt like this is just right in line with that big picture that I have, using my life and my experiences and applying it to a cause. It's not for nothing, right? Like all of the hardship that I've gone through isn't for nothing, that it is used for good, and channeling that through this agency. And so that's where this partnership came about. I said, let's start doing it. So with that, I just got to work doing what I do, which is research. Let's say I have a prospect and I want to get in front of them. I'm going to go and just do all the research that I need to understand who, what, when, where, why, how. And I became an expert of the nanny industry. Who's who, what software, what tools, what resources, and putting it all together. And then here we are 2 years later. And, my goal is to create a wheelhouse, or to create a turnkey solution for parents. Because what I found is when we go into being parents, we have no formal training. We are not early childhood education experts. We are not psychologists. In my case, I'm a communications major. You can't really teach an infant or a toddler communication skills or persuasion skills, right? I went into being a mom, as my husband would say, with brute force and ignorance. Guessing, it's a guessing game. We're just going to figure this out. Now, my maternal instinct obviously kicked in, and my daughter was really easy, very compliant child. My son, on the other hand, you say left, he goes right. You say up, he goes down. So I tried to apply my parenting skill set with my daughter to my son, and it was like bathing a cat. It did not go well. And so I thought I had this parenting thing figured out. And then when I had my son, I was like, oh boy, I was not cut out to be a parent. And so when I hired my nanny, she had a skill set that I didn't have. She showed me how to parent my son in ways that I wasn't privy to. It was a matter of, I didn't even realize I needed her as much as I did, because I was so frustrated with parenting him, but she was able to gain compliance from him in ways that I wasn't able to. And at times, I'm not kidding when I say I was taking notes from my nanny. Being able to set aside your pride and accept that help, but also know that you don't have to know it all. My goal is to create a network of tools and resources that parents will need to successfully parent, whether that's the resources for hiring a nanny successfully, or a lactation consultant, or a sleep consultant, or a child psychologist, a parenting expert, whatever that is. I mean, the list is plenty. It goes on and on and on and on of who or what you will need throughout your parenting journey. And the goal is to bring all of that together with a vetted community of providers where we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Sounds like you step by step thought about, so research was ideal. And then with research comes more questions. You took those questions and you figured out a way to process. And I love what you just said. Sometimes being that vulnerability that you showed and you got this person to be your nanny, you learned the skills and it made things easier. Sometimes we stick and dig our heels in and we're in this situation and we're dealing with all of the stressors and still not being an expert. So getting the expert sometimes can relieve some of the stresses. So you find these amazing, outstanding folks. So you vet them and you hire them. How do you work now as a founder? Because there's a tricky part here. When you're a founder, it's your baby. You have the responsibility to the parents in developing a program where they have the autonomy with the nanny, and you also are supporting the nanny. What are some of the things you put into place where there is safety for both the parent and you're managing but not hovering or over managing so that nannies would feel supported on both sides?
Yeah, so we serve as the middleman between the nanny and the family. There's a disconnect in what the family desires or what the family's budget is and what the nanny desires and what is livable and sustainable for the nanny. So we bridge that gap and we help create those harmonious partnerships to where we can set up both the family and the nanny for long-term success. While we give the family a ton of autonomy in their partnership with their nanny, we give them the tools and the resources that they need to successfully partner with their nanny. And we also, even beyond the placement, serve as a resource. The family is employing the nanny. We are simply the middleman making the partnership harmonious, creating that partnership, bridging that gap. But beyond the placement, we really trust that nannies and families are going to run with that partnership. Now, we have an open door. If there's ever an issue that arises, a nanny has reached back out to us and said, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. How should I handle it? And we'll kind of help break that ice. Or a parent reaches out to us and says, I'm really frustrated with my nanny and here's what the issue is. And then giving that family practical tips and tools and resources of like how to navigate this situation. Here's how to have that conversation with your nanny. Because a lot of times it's like a marriage where you have to be comfortable having difficult conversations. You have to be comfortable giving feedback, and you have to be also respectable, right? Like you have to have that relationship and rapport with each other and the respect, but also the boundaries, right? Where it's like, hey, I didn't like how you handled this, and this is how I would like you to handle it moving forward. If I were to give that feedback to my nanny, but also my nanny knowing that, okay, absolutely, not a problem. Happy to adopt that, open to that feedback. But also making sure that when you create that match, that you're not putting an alpha with an alpha, right? That we know, hey, mom is someone that takes the reins and she's going to lead, and she wants a nanny that's going to come in there, do a good job, but also follow her lead. And that we are creating and placing nannies with families that are a match, because that's crucial. To go back to the original question you asked is making sure that there's an open door for the parents and for the nannies, because we, at the end of the day, are not the employer. We are merely the agency that does all of the connecting, the vetting, the sourcing, the qualifying, all of that. So there is a lot of autonomy as it relates to how the parent partners and employs that nanny. But we always have that open door policy to where we will continue to consult and have a relationship with the family and the nanny to help, again, continue to bridge that partnership and create an environment where everyone feels comfortable having difficult conversations.
One of the most important things is to be able to have and give feedback. And you, as a company owner knows what your why is. Why are you there? And you have that vision in mind. And it seems like everyone has a role, and everyone's role is very clearly defined and understood. That creates this environment. And that, again, happened after you knew the processes and procedures, and this is how you're going to function. So that really seems like there are processes in place. So how do you, in your past company, you were working with going 50 miles an hour or more and being the top performer. And in this company, it's your own baby. How do you balance your home and family and work life? And what has been the most joyful experience since you began, especially with your family?
I actually just had this conversation the other day where I said it was easier when I worked in a corporate setting because I could leave, go away for the weekend, go away on vacation for the week, and ignore everything that was work related for that week. And just compartmentalize it and just know I'll get to it when it's, come Monday, I'll address that. Or I will address that when I'm back from vacation. And as a business owner, you don't really have that luxury. Could I put it on the back burner until Monday? Sure. But do I want to? Absolutely not. Even then, when I worked in a corporate setting, that is what set me apart as a top performer, is I wasn't the person that waited until Monday. I wasn't the person that was like, you know what, this can wait until I get back from vacation. I was working evenings. I was working weekends. I was answering emails on vacation. It was fine. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit and that willingness to go above and beyond the call of duty. In my corporate setting, I had that option. Not to say that I exercised it. But in business, I don't feel like I have that option. Like it's make or break. And failure is not an option. I mean, it is. I've thought about that. In the past, failure wasn't an option. Now it's like, and I even ask myself, why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. I'm in a position in my life where, you know what? If I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and just no care in the world, go to yoga on Wednesdays, like casually have brunch with my friends, like I could do that. But it's just not the way that I'm wired. I have this like burning desire to make a difference and to use my past experiences for good. And I feel like I am the voice and the representative for a lot of moms. And my gift and my skills are intended to be used for good. And so here I am and I'm doing it. And I sometimes ask myself, am I crazy? Because I'm doing something that I don't have to do, but I'm still doing it.
Seems like it's a lot of joy and you know what you want and you have a choice. Everyone's so different. So there are some leaders that are like, hey, I just want 9 to 5 and I'm just going to do, but knowing who you are, and if you can't handle it and you need to look for an email, if it works, there's no right and wrong answer. Often we hear, we should turn it off and there's got to be a work-life balance. But if your balance is that if you would just be so anxious if you didn't check your emails or you didn't support the parent who needed help on the weekend, and of course, I'm sure you have some boundaries and limits around it. So if it's like a continuous something, you're going to create a boundary around it. So how long have you been running the new business?
A little over 2 years now.
So in 2 years, you probably have some experiences. So what lessons have you learned from your journey as a parent entrepreneur? And what advice would you offer to other parents considering being entrepreneurs themselves and going out and starting a business of their own?
It would be just to be authentic, identify who you are, what makes you tick, what doesn't, and be true to yourself. Like you were just saying about work-life balance. What does that mean to me? That might mean to me something different than it means to you entirely. Right? And so I feel like culture and society puts all these like parameters in place and ideologies of what work-life balance is, right? But that's different for everyone. If I didn't answer my emails on the weekend, it would I'm the type of person that until it is off my desk, it will sit there in my mind and it'll just resonate and just reminder, don't forget, you have this email. Don't forget, waiting till Monday is more stress than it is just a boom, answer the email, get it off my plate, done. That to me is what is authentic and true to me. That's what makes me feel at ease. That might not be true for someone else. And figuring out what does that look like to you? Don't assess what that is culturally or to society or what people are pushing. What is it that you desire? What is it that makes you feel good and at peace? And do that. And don't worry about what others are doing. Do what feels authentic and good and right to you.
So Stephanie, when you first started your business, I know when I started my business, finances, again, we go back to it because that could be really challenging for someone who's starting a business for the first time. What are some of the things to consider in terms of money coming in and being able to sustain your business past the first few years? What practices could you impart for others to learn from your situation?
So I would say it's one, to have a plan, have a business plan, know exactly what it's going to take, and have all of that mapped out while you still have that security that you desire or that you need. And then, continue to do the business on the side. That's what I did personally, was I did the business for an entire year while still working my corporate job until I finally took that leap and jumped in the deep end, because I knew that the business wasn't going to be profitable initially, that it would take time for that. And then even when it was profitable, being in a position to take those profits and put it back into the business. Because the sooner you pay yourself, you delay that ROI, that long-term ROI, right? So it's kind of like if you have a vehicle, but you have no money to put gasoline in it, it's going to go not very far. And the age-old saying of it takes money to make money. You have to put money out there. You have to invest. So you can either pay yourself and deplete the business, or you can put the money back into the business and keep fueling it as if it was an engine, right, that needed coal. And they keep putting coal into the engine to keep it going. It's the same idea. So you can find that balance to where maybe there's a percentage that you pay yourself, just to keep yourself going, like your livelihood. But otherwise, in an ideal situation, you would keep putting back into the business, because long term, that's going to be far more beneficial than it is to deplete the business.
That's very sound advice. I think just having a nest egg and just having a plan in place, and things are going up and down, and especially in the last 3-4 years as the world is shifting, everything else, the cost of goods have gone up, and we're seeing a variety of challenges to sustain a business in this time. It requires us to have courage, to have a plan in place, to pivot, and also support systems. So, Stephanie, what is your support system now? When you were in a workplace, you had your colleagues and your supervisors or mentors. Now, who's your sounding board, and how do you surround yourself with others that can help you sort of not be so alone?
So my business partner is my first sounding board. It's nice to have someone to bounce ideas back and forth with, and to share those tribulations and trials and struggles with. That's really nice. But I would say my support system is my husband mostly, because he's been in business for over 25 years. So he knows, what it is in those infant stages of business and what it entails. But also I have help on the home front too. Right. So I have a household manager that helps with general tidiness of my home, with laundry, cleaning, making the beds, all of the things that take me away from being productive in my business that is busy work, that I have help on the home front. I also have the help from my husband. Having that support system makes it possible for me to give the time that I need to my business. Otherwise, without that support, I would not have the time to give to my business, because I would have family demands that needed my attention. And so I am very fortunate to have that support on the home front that allows me the time that I want to give to my business so that I can fulfill those things that I'm on fire about, right? That identity that I have in my business or in my contribution to society, that it's fulfilling. And without that support, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you take care of yourself so you can be the whole person to be present for others. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for having this conversation and encouraging those who have amazing ideas and they might, from listening to this podcast, have the ability or a few encouraging spots that they can use to just project to the next level. And you are listening to Jagged Edge Podcast for leadership. And hopefully we have inspired you or shared a few tools with you. And thank you, Stephanie, for being with us today. If you like this episode, please don't forget to follow. And if you would like to join other social media, it's Yogi Patel _TTE. And Stephanie, how can folks find you?
They can find us on Hellonannydotcom, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or www.hellonanny.com.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
If you like the content of this video, please don't forget to follow. And also, if you want more information, visit the website, yogipateltte.com.